we altered the schedule a little bit, and partly because of when we got home. We got home a little later Saturday night than expected. We had some plane issues. The concern for me always, if we get back past 2 a.m., all the sleep studies give you the information on the days it takes to recover from that. So a lot of good tape yesterday. The day before yesterday. They were off yesterday. Today was a ramp-up practice with some good situational red zone work. Tomorrow we'll be in pads. And then I've talked with Coach Gannon. We'll have a plan for Thursday. And, similar to in years past, we'll use both fields. So we'll have that mapped out pretty clean. Friday will be separate, which would be normal. And then, of course, we play the game Saturday night. So, it's on us pretty quick again. I think the important thing for us as a team is still not losing track of the things that we need to be doing prior to getting to another opponent. And so not losing track of, being in training camp. And I thought they handled today pretty well. So any questions? Yeah, and look, he's doing fine. I anticipate him practicing tomorrow and this week. He should be in good shape.
It looked like he was limping at the game and stuff.
Yeah, look, it was something in his foot, but he's going to be all right.
Coach Devon Bailey had one of his better days in camp. Where is he in his progression as an NFL wide receiver?
Well, I've said this before, even a year ago. He's extremely smart. So he can play a lot of the positions. He's a good blocker. I like his size. And so it's a good chess piece for us, the things that he does well. Certainly year 2 for him, but year 1 was accelerated learning for him as well. Like even last year, we found him playing more than just one position. Sometimes that's not the case, but he's doing well. And part of it is, the maintenance on his knee, making sure he's fresh. And it's a little bit easier to maintain in season than when you're just stacking day after day in training camp. So we'll continue to find his spots. He's a big target on third down and in the red zone.
A.T. Perry was out there for individual. What will he need to do to kind of get caught up?
Yeah, he's getting close. He's smart. Today he was cleared for individual. And, again, we're not going to put a player out there until they're 100% ready. And so there's kind of an on-ramp for someone like him who's missed quite a bit of practice.
For second stream, this season, kind of had a nice little offseason, had a good preseason. What did you see from him making that climb?
He's smart. He's got really good ball skills. He's one of those players that someone brought it up, I think, at the beginning of training camp. The tail end of last year, his play and his confidence, you can have a stretch of 4 weeks and all of a sudden that can carry over into the next year. He's someone that prefers to play off and keep the ball in front, break on the ball. But I like his ball skills, and I like between the ears. He's very, very smart.
Sean, you said after the game the other day there were about 14 things that irritated you. What were some of those things, and what are you doing?
Yeah, there are a lot of different things, and none of which I'm going to go through now. When you take your first road trip, and you're seeing it through my eyes, there's certain notes you make, and then it could be sidelines, it could be hotel, it could be 2 a.m. There's a festival outside the hotel, it could be the travel, it could be a number of things that you want to clean up, but I'm not going to go through all 14 of them. There's probably 17 by the time I got home, and so all of which can be cleaned up and easily corrected. And they weren't necessarily game related, if that makes any sense. It's just when you do that and you hadn't done it in a while, and you're doing it with a new group of people, a lot of interns, a lot of, you can't assume anything.
In terms of just game related, what were your thoughts on how the starters did after watching?
Yeah, I think defensively, the first drive, obviously you don't want to see a score. The third down play was a significant play that led to that touchdown. We bounced back pretty quickly. Offensively, we'll clean some things up. Overall, there were a lot of positives. And I think overall grading the week, and what I mean by that is Thursday's practice was pretty long, maybe a little longer than I would have liked. And then the turnaround and then the game on Saturday, there were a number of things when we put the film on that we felt we did really well situationally. And then there were a handful of things that we didn't do as well. And, we need to get our alignments cleaned up on offense. There was a penalty thrown, and I'm glad it happens in a joint practice. You don't want it to happen in week 10 in a game that matters. So clearly for us, there was plenty to coach off of, and there were a lot of reps to coach off of. I thought our depth showed up well. Look, you come away with the 4 takeaways. The field position, how we handled the end of the half, I like that sequence. We scored defensively in the 2-minute. They elected to run it. We called the timeouts, got the ball back, scored again, started with the ball. So situationally, there was a lot of things that we could point at. And then on both fields Thursday, there were situations that came up that we're working on right now that you see Evan Rothstein installs each night. We went through just a couple of them right there. These come up in the games. They're not guaranteed to come up each game. Some might come up once every 3 years. Some might come up more frequently. But educating the team to become situationally smarter than the rest, I think is important. And a lot of that came up over the weekend.
Sean, you mentioned that particularly defensively, having guys like Abram Strain who've now had some action, and Justin Sternad who played a lot last year. Is that what you're feeling with this camp now? Like maybe a different situation?
We're definitely deeper, and look, you guys have written about tough decisions at running back, tough decisions at receiver, tough decisions. Those are all indications that there's a little bit more depth maybe than in years past. Generally speaking, that creates that higher level of performance, that competition, and then how do we keep trying to give these guys opportunities where it gives us more of an exposure. We're not even halfway. And I mean that. We're not halfway. And, I want to get Evan a few touches in the game. How do I get Bryant a few, receptions in the game? How do I handle the running back rotation this week different than last week? The same way with us on defense at certain positions. Those are all things that we discuss during the week and try to manufacture.
Let's talk about the sense of urgency after the game on Saturday night, and then saying you don't want to lose sight of being training camp. What does that look like to you? Is that just not looking ahead to being back on the field against another team?
Well, yeah, this is the first time for me and for us where like back-to-back joint practices. And so when you have a joint practice, like you lose a day, like the day prior, you got to be smart. And so it can when you get the calendar at the start of preseason, you lay it out and you see when your games are. There's 3 of them, and when you add a joint practice, it's a little different the day before and the day. So when you have 2 of them, it can cut into maybe your installation and your normal training camp routine. So the first time for us to do 2. We'll see if we ever do it again. I'm used to really 1, either week 2 or week 3. So what was different was week 1. And that's just, one of those things you make a note of.
You've talked before about you always have this, 6 straight days at some point in camp. What do you get when you have those long sort of like uninterrupted years? What do you learn about a team in that situation?
I think there's a mental and physical toughness of fighting through, the fatigue and the soreness, and it's also training the body to get in season. I mean that's how it feels in season, and then remember, the amount of time we spend on recovery is so important, and so I like the fact that all 3 preseason games are on Saturday, so that allows the routine to get consistent schedule-wise. But yeah, I think that when you have a stretch of 6 days, and they're not all in pads, but you're well into your installation, your corrections, and you're getting a chance to mix and match different lineups. And so we'll have that again all next week before New Orleans. And New Orleans is just a fly in, play the game, and fly back. And then we kind of go from there.
Knowing how much you emphasize special teams, what do you want to see from the kid punter kind of going forward, knowing that he was going to be somewhat
yeah.
be a little uneven?
Hey, and it's just game day experience. It was funny. Both he and Morstead were there, and Thomas, I told you guys, I had a chance to draft him in New Orleans in 2009. And so, God, I don't know what year it is for him now, 18. But he was a 5th round pick, and he came up to me afterwards, and he just went on about having a chance to meet our guy and then watch his flexibility. He just said, and Thomas has done this long enough. He said, "Man, you really got a good one," and so it's working through some of those things that we do with rookies, but you guys see it, and him getting used to the game situations, and that he's got a bright future.
Sean, do you have any credence to the idea that drafting Jahdae Barron raised J-Mac and Riley Moss's play, at least here in camp?
Well, I think anytime, that's a given throughout the league. If I play linebacker and someone drafts a linebacker in that draft class, it adds to the competition of the team, and you're not. It's not like this is what you're gonna. 2 years ago we felt strongly that we were going to draft a quarterback, but there's some rounds where, like that first round, had probably 3 different directions it could have went, and so, but factually it does. It does.
We saw RJ Harvey actually kind of run plays outside in his debut. Was that kind of by design? Is it part of his?
Yeah, there's one of them. Look, at the end of the day, and the great skill set he has is that ability, speed-wise, but he can get it through the line of scrimmage the same way. There was one where, we felt like, hey, trust it, be a little bit more patient. But he's an extremely instinctive runner. We're going to get a number of looks to see him between the tackles. It's all there on college tape, and the best thing is he's such a willing learner. He's very not critical of himself, but man, he wants to please, and he's very coachable. So. Yeah, there's certain runs, and as we get into looking at Arizona, their front, and what we want to feature that I think he'll be comfortable with.
Coach, with the second joint practice on Thursday, will that impact how long you play the starters on?
It may, because this is a first, Normally, I would go into the second quarter. I don't know that I'm going to do that based on the schedule. We'll see.
Sean, we'll get a chance to talk to Lucas Cole today. What do you like about your depth at tight end?
Yeah, and look, he's a guy now, been in the league. He's not a rookie or a young player anymore, and he's found some confidence, and it's been built. You know, I always say this with a series of plays. The first play that I can remember 2 years ago, we, on a critical third down in LA against the Chargers, he broke a tackle, converted a first down to keep the drive going, and we needed it. And so he stacked up a few of those plays. I think he's having a good camp. He's a good target down the field. He got open on a busted coverage the other night that all of us, would have been just as happy and open as he was.
Coach, you've spoken to the fact that you've seen a good significant portion of J.K. Dobbins on NFL film, but do you want to have more of a balance, maybe get J.K. more involved in preseason, or you think?
Yeah, he'll get some touches, and I want to get some protection work with him, and sort through the third down protection role for some of these guys. If it's not him, who's the next protector up, that kind of thing. But yeah, and part of it is trying to get the quality reps for the other guys.
With McMillan, the takeaways the last couple of years, where do you see this? Is that football IQ, is it physicality?
Man, he's smart, and again, there's certain players the ball finds them, and so if the ball finds players, that generally means they're pretty smart. And then you have to have ball skills. Like, you can be pretty smart with bad hands, and the ball's going to find you. You're just not going to catch it. But he's got those skill sets. One more.
Jaleel had the broken tackle on the run that got called back, and he talked about being at 199, adding strength. Was that something that he did about his own volition, or did you guys kind of encourage him?
Yeah, it's not a big change, because I'm always mindful for the receivers and the corners and the runners. I see the mistake made often. They come into our league and they have more time over there, and they feel like they have to. And so, it's important that it doesn't change how you run. And so, but he's at a good weight. And look, there's no one that trains as diligently and as hard as he does. He makes, they're able to measure the movements, and so there hasn't been a drop off with where he's at, and so he's on top of. There's nobody more in tune to where their body is than that player.